All right, welcome to another episode of the Legal Lowdown. I am your host, Matthew R. Carpenter, an attorney. And today we're diving into a world where technology and human connection are colliding. It feels a bit like sci-fi, but it's very real. That's right. We're looking at an article called Sex Lex Machina, Intimacy and Artificial Intelligence by Jeannie Gerson. Thank you, Jeannie. And our goal here is to really unpack what happens when AI meets sex and intimacy. We're talking legal questions, societal and philosophical ones too. It's all raised by these, well, you guessed it, sex robots. And these aren't just, advanced toys. We're talking AI-driven robots designed to look, act, simulate being with a real person. Silicone skin, moving faces, they can talk back, all that jazz. Programmable personalities even. Wow. So it's totally different kind of interaction we're dealing with here. And the source highlights how this really forces us to ask some, pretty tough questions. Like, how do we even legally classify interacting with them? Is it just a private act? Is it some kind of relationship? And what does it all say about us, about our own relationships? So let's get to what the source found. Okay, so let's start with the immediate reaction, sometimes called the robot sex panic. The source brings up that attempted robot brothel in Houston back in 2018. They got shut down real fast. By Houston amending its code governing adult-oriented businesses to ban sexual contact with an anthropomorphic device or object on commercial premises, the Houston City Council effectively shut down the business before it could even open. So it got shut down by a city ordinance based on fears it would somehow, objectify women, maybe harm kids. And they even brought up biblical stuff too, which seems like quite a leap in my opinion. And it was fascinating, the source points out, is how quickly people jump to regulating machines using laws designed for human trafficking and prostitution, right? Now, for some, that may seem inconsistent, but, not entirely. You had the Creeper Act of 2017, Curbing Realistic Exploitive Electronics Pedophilic Robots Act, banning child sex dolls and robots based on fears they normalize abuse, right? Even though, as the source notes, that there isn't really solid scientific proof that they do normalize abuse, that these sex bots do normalize abuse. Just the fear was enough. But I'm going to chime in personally here and say, yeah, I think it would normalize abuse. Like, come on, sex dolls being sold that look like children. Yeah, there's no way that ends well. Come on. But carrying on. So laws for humans apply to objects because we're scared, pretty much. That's what's going on. And groups like Campaign Against Sex Robots argue that sex with a robot inherently copies the bad power dynamics that exist in prostitution, right? That it could make people less empathetic or even feel exploitation of actual humans is okay. And the source mentions the word robots itself comes from forced worker, which I don't think anybody knows, but yeah. Which adds this whole other layer of discomfort when you apply it to intimacy, man. At least in my opinion. It forces you to think about what we're projecting onto these things. And it's not just sex robots, right? Like the source mentions AI assistants like Siri and Alexa, people flirting with them. I've never done that. This is a first for me, but you do you, boo. And apparently some even propose a marriage. Okay, there we go. And I mean, I guess, guys, like seriously, come on. The dating pool isn't that bad. And there was a UN report pointed out that early versions, often with female voices, these are the AI voice assistants with female voices, were programmed to be pretty submissive even to abuse. Wow. We really wilding out here in the AI world. That's why I think this stuff is so fascinating, because it's like the Wild West, just in a virtual form. But to be fair, companies have apparently changed some of these programming codes now, right? But it shows just how easily we interact intimately with these kinds of technologies, and surprisingly how quickly people get attached or share vulnerabilities, like telling Alexa, for example, I'm lonely. Yeah, I might do that later. And the source raises a concern that this interaction isn't reciprocal. Like those ATL workers 2 Chainz warned us about, the machines don't feel back. They don't feel anything. They want that money. So could that lead people to pull back from real messy human relationships? That's the worry some experts have. It's interesting. Even companion robots like Pepper, their terms ban sexual use. And why is that, right? Like, why do you think that is? It might be because sex makes it feel too much like using an object, or maybe the opposite, right? Maybe it makes us see them too much like people, and then using them that way feels wrong. Which brings us to the right to consent, a huge legal concept that pops up in all different disciplines, right? That's huge in the source material, this consent issue. especially when you have robots designed to simulate reluctance, like that frigid Farah personality that the source mentions. You guys dig into this? She was designed to simulate restraint so you could coerce her. Like what? Guys, I'm not making this up. This is the Wild West. This is like a Black Mirror episode. But so the question becomes, can you you know, I'll just say it, can you rape a robot, right? It feels like a jarring question, but because they act like they have feelings, unlike a simple object, it triggers our human moral instincts. How does that fit with, say, legal history, legal precedent? The source mentioned a Supreme Court case, and guys, I am not making this up, right? Ashcroft v. Free Speech Coalition. It dealt with virtual child pornography and found no inherent link between the image and real abuse. Virtual child pornography and found no inherent link between the image and real abuse. In other words, the Supreme Court held that a law prohibiting child pornography that was computer-generated child pornography, meaning there was no child actually involved, without using any real children, was unconstitutionally overbroad. The law was unconstitutionally overbroad. Look it up. So, does that logic apply here, right? Like these sex robots don't involve real people, right? On the receiving end of the sexual act or sexual request, right? It's just on the giving end there's a human. Does simulating non-consent with a robot give people a safe outlet? But there's a real concern here, right? Like desensitizing people. Like that's the debate, really. That's really at the crux of all this, right? Like, what is this going to do to humans? And it gets really complicated because, as the source points out, we allow humans to role play, coercion, fantasy, all that type of stuff, right? Like, it feels inconsistent to ban that with a robot when people do it all the time, right? And that can have desensitizing effects on humans as well, I'm sure. Even more intense desensitizing effects, right? But then again, does the robot's total inability to consent make any sexual act with it problematic, right? Even gentle ones. It's like, why is human sex different than this, though? I guess is my question. We don't worry about a vacuum giving consent. Like these things clean your house for you all the time. We don't care, right? We're not desensitized to machines doing fundamental tasks for us. Like we're not worried about that. But maybe this raises another question, right? Is sex just seen as a more fundamental aspect of being human that is like sacred? Is this more about vulnerability, right? Well, that seems to be part of it. And ultimately, the source says we just don't know if this tech will help us connect better or isolate us more. Look, my money is on isolation for sure. But at the end of the day, reasonable minds could vary. It's an incredibly complex issue, and objectification, abuse, potential loneliness, what intimacy even is exactly. This whole, legal lowdown really puts us in that uncanny valley, right? Like these are the tough questions that legislatures, judges, attorneys are gonna have to talk about. Like this will become a burgeoning part of the law one day. Like, can you imagine? It's not just gonna be optics. Like it's gonna present some serious ethical issues for all of us. And that feeling when something is almost human but not quite, like that's a very gray area. And we don't know how to react to that just yet. I mean, I don't. Doing this podcast kind of made me a little bit uncomfortable. There were some funny moments, but like this is real, right? Like you see this stuff in movies, it's probably gonna happen. And the source suggests that with stronger reactions from the public, there will be greater pushes for regulation. That's true. And so, yeah, the dilemma is real. The source highlights this paradox. It's a real problem. And the more human-like they become with AI, the more wrong it might feel too. So regulations and the laws and the public debate, it's less about the robots themselves, really, and more about us, right? Like this is really what it comes down to. It's like, how does this impact us? And the source argues that these sex robots are like a mirror. This is the deep philosophical part, right? If it wasn't deep enough, right? These sex robots reflect our own fears or are causing us to at least address our own fears, our vulnerabilities, our ideas about connection and relationships. It forces us to confront a pretty fundamental question, right? Like, what does it actually mean to be human and to connect intimately? Definitely something for you to think about until our next legal lowdown. Thank you for listening.